Hello and welcome to this video and to December's book review. It is the 9th of January when I've come in to actually film this, so we'll see how much I remember of these books because it's been a while. You know what it is, how it is, things just get in the way and I haven't had a chance to film. So in December I read 6 books, so without further ado let's jump into it. So the first book I actually listened to on audio, and that was The Wrong Suitcase by Laura Jane Williams. This is a novella following our two main characters who are going to, I think it was Italy, for a wedding, and when they get to the hotel they've got the same suitcase, so like the porters send them to the wrong room, so it's a case of trying to get their suitcase back, and obviously from there a romance ensues. The reason I picked this one up is A, I was looking for an audiobook, B, I took part in the winter readathon hosted by What Victoria Read, and one of the prompts was a book under 250 pages, so I thought that fit. And also I'd read every other Laura Jane Williams this year, so I figured that's available, let's read that one. I am not normally a novella fan. I normally feel like you don't get enough development in plot or character. But I actually quite enjoyed this one and felt that it suited the sort of novella format because it had a distinct beginning, middle and end, which I often find with novellas isn't the case. I would have liked to know what happened next, but also I'm happy with where it ended. But our main character, Izzy, did get on my nerves quite a bit. I don't know if it's just the way that it was read or the way it was written. To say that Laura Jane Williams actually read the audiobook for this one, but she irritated me, whereas the male main character, Birchie, I quite liked. I found him quite endearing, I suppose. So yeah, not a lot to say about it being a novella and short, but I would recommend. It was a good audiobook, and as I said, the author reads it herself, so it worked very well and I enjoyed my time with it. And that was The Wrong Suitcase by Laura Jane Williams. And to say, I gave that one 3.5 stars. The first sort of book I read in the month was The Wedding Witch by Erin Stirling. This is the third in the, I don't know what we call this series, with the X-Hex and the Kiss Curse. Penhallows maybe, I don't know, because that's the name of the brothers. And in this one we're following the third brother, Bowen, who is on the search for some sort of spell thing, whatever, to help make amends for something that went wrong with his friend. So he hires, what's her name? Oh, it's on the back, that's helpful. Tamsin, to help locate whatever this thing is. And again, they end up at a wedding at Christmas time, and there's a whole time travel thing with this and all of that kind of thing. Again, I gave this one 3.5 stars. I can't remember what I gave the other two. It's been quite a while since I read them, but from my feeling of it, this is my least favourite in that series because I like it when we're in Graves Glen. I like it when we're with the characters. I miss the talking cat and obviously some of the other characters, but mainly the talking cat. So I missed that sort of aspect to it. I would say this is a good sort of bridging book between seasons, between your Halloween spooky season reads and your Christmas reads, because this is obviously witches but at Christmas. So it's a good bridging book if that's the kind of thing that you're after. I said there was a time travel element to it. I feel like they just could have done so much more with this story than Erin Stirling did. I feel like there was a lot more that they could have done with it. Bowen and Tamsin were fine as characters. I didn't have a real draw to them or dislike of them, so it was sort of, it was fun, but it isn't very memorable, and it being the 9th and I can't remember a huge amount of this plot says a lot about it. I will be holding on to it because I have the rest in the series, but as I say, it's not my favourite book in that trilogy, but I'm glad I picked it up and I'm glad I've now read it. The next one I reread, but I listened to it in audio, and that was The Christmasaurus by Fletcher. Again, one of the prompts in that readathon was a reread, and this was available on my library app as an audiobook, so I thought, why not give it a go? I gave it 4 stars again. I liked the audiobook. I can't remember who narrates it, but they did a good job. And the elves in that book do a lot of singing, so it was nice to hear that sort of put to music. I know there is like a musical version of this book, and I was hoping that's what I was getting, but it wasn't that. But it was still fun to be there, and there were parts of it that I hadn't quite remembered, but on the whole, it was nice. It was good having it as an audiobook this time and experiencing it that way. So the next book I read was The Christmas Cottage by Sarah Morgan. This I got from the library, and it was my book club pick for this month, although January is when we're talking about it, which might not work for me, but I read it so long ago as well that I need to try and remember what it is, so it's helpful that I'm doing this video so late because it might actually spark some memories of this book for me. Again, I gave this one 4 stars. I quite enjoyed it. It wasn't really what I was expecting. So all I really know is Sarah Morgan. I've never read any of her books before, but is that she's a romance writer and she releases something in the summer that's summery and something at Christmas that's Christmassy. So I was expecting your sort of fluffy Christmas read, Hallmark kind of thing, typical romance, that kind of stuff, and it wasn't entirely that. It had a lot more sort of depth to it. We're following our main character. Have I written her name down? No, I haven't written her name down, so I don't know what her name is, but our female main character is going through a whole heap of issues. She then basically is told that she has to go after a mistake at work, which is questionable whether it's a mistake at work, but she's told that she has to go and have a month off, and one of her clients allows her to stay in her cottage in the Cotswolds over Christmas, and from there there are certain secrets and things that come out from that. So all of that bit was actually quite entertaining, and I was happy with that as the story, but then obviously they also added in this romance subplot, joint plot, and I think my main issue with this book is that it was trying to do 2 things, but the 2 things didn't quite mesh together very well for me. I thought I should have stuck with one idea and ran with that. And then because of that, I don't think the ending worked very well, because just too much that they're trying to tie up, and yeah, it just didn't work very well, that ending for me. However, I did like the writing style, and I would read more from the author, which is very helpful because I have another one of her Christmas books on my shelf to read this December. I would like to have got to it this year, but it was not going to happen with the reading plans that I had already in December. So it had a number of plus points to it. Obviously I gave it 4 stars, so it would. There were dogs, always like a dog in a book. The writing style, as I said, I really enjoyed the setting, the sort of Cotswoldy country Christmas idea of it. That was a lot of fun. I also like the dynamics of the family, and the characters that we got from there. So all of that I liked. I just felt that the 2 plots were sort of fighting each other a little bit, which then also meant that the ending didn't work very well. So that is The Christmas Cottage, which is by Sarah Morgan. If you have been following along for majority of this year, you will know that I have been working my way through the Bridgerton series, and I did it. I read the 9th and final book this month, which is Happily Ever After by Julia Quinn. I don't have it hold up because it had already left my collection. At the end of the year, I went through all the books that hadn't sold on Vinted and things like that, and they've now gone to Wilder Books to get me a little bit of money that way, or the charity shop. I think this one went to Wilder Books. But this is the 9th and final book in the Bridgerton series. In this, we're basically getting a second epilogue for each of the stories. So I didn't really see the whole point of having this book, but I did give it 3.5 stars. It was entertaining enough. It was fun being back with some of the characters. At the beginning of each of the story, Julia Quinn wrote why she'd picked that aspect of the story to write a second epilogue to, and I really enjoyed those parts, to see what feedback she got from readers and which parts that she felt she wanted to explore. So having her reasoning was probably my favourite part of it. I found with a lot of the stories it did then just leave me with more questions, and I didn't have those questions at the end of their main novels, so again that's the reason why I'm like, I don't really know why we did it. But we did get a like novella about Violet and her life, which I did enjoy. I knew it wasn't, but when my mum originally was going through the books and we saw that she had the 9th one, we both thought it was going to be Violet's story. It isn't. But you do get that sort of novella at the end of her life, which I did like. That was a good one. What I didn't like though is that some of the epilogues weren't about the main Bridgertons. So for example, my favourite book in the series is Eloise's, and the second epilogue for Eloise's book is not about Eloise, and she doesn't make a lot of appearance in it. It's about the stepdaughter. So that annoyed me because, quite frankly, I don't care. I want to know what's happening with Eloise. So yeah, there's a few of them in there that aren't actually about the couples themselves. But I've done it. I've completed the series, and for that I am happy to have done 9 Bridgertons over 2025. So that's Happily Ever After by Julia Quinn. And my final read of 2025, because the book I'm currently reading I didn't finish in the year, so it's a 2026 book. But the final one I read was The Christmas Tree Farm by Laurie Gilmore. This is the 3rd book in the Dream Harbour series, and in this one we are following Kira, who has taken over the Christmas Tree Farm, but she is keeping herself to herself and not really getting involved in the Dream Harbour life. And our male main character in this one is Bennett, who is the brother of Jeannie, who is the main character in the Pumpkin Spice Cafe. Again, I gave this one 3.5 stars. It's been a very 3.5 month for me. I thought it was a strange choice to follow these 2 in the 3rd book. I would have thought Annie would have made more sense because we've got to know her more in the other books, whereas we have absolutely no idea about these 2. Kira makes a very brief appearance in the Cinnamon Bun bookstore at the town meeting, but other than that we have absolutely no idea who these are, so I would have thought we would be following a couple that we maybe know a bit better, but hey, there we go. I think this book suffered a little bit for when I read it, because I was reading this over Christmas Boxing Day, so I probably started it around the 21st and finished it about the 28th. So it was, you know, slap bang peak Christmas. We were doing loads of stuff with Eloise over that point. Obviously my family came over Christmas. So I think this book just suffered from when I read it because I wasn't able to give it its full attention. So I found it a little bit forgettable. That being said, I like that it's a Christmas book that isn't saccharine. It isn't like super sweet. There are some deeper topics to it. I mean, not overly deep because I wouldn't have coped with that over the Christmas period either. But it's not just, you know, cocoa and blankets. It's got a little bit more to it than that. However, my criticism of the Cinnamon Bun bookstore is that we didn't get enough of Dream Harbour, and the people were there like we did in the Pumpkin Spice Cafe, and that is exactly the same with this one. Despite the fact that Kira is new to town, she is actively chosen to keep herself to herself, so there's a little bit of it. There's probably more of it in this one than the Cinnamon Bun bookstore, but there's not enough of that Dream Harbour setting as a character and things, which is what I really liked in the Pumpkin Spice Cafe, and haven't quite had in the next 2. This is very much Grumpy Sunshine, but it's switched, which I liked. Normally the male is the grumpy, the female is the sunshine. We have that the other way. Bennett is like the ultimate acts of service, love language guy. He does a lot to help her out and to do things as his way of showing his affection. which I can appreciate. After having a baby, I think my love language has changed slightly to more acts of service, so I can appreciate that he just gets on and does. So yeah, as I say, I did enjoy it. I do want to carry on with the series. I think we've got a gingerbread cafe, maybe? What have we got? The Strawberry Patch Pancake House is the next one. I think there's 2 more that have come out since that. Like something to do with gingerbread and something to do with flowers. I don't know. But I do enjoy the whole Dream Harbour setting. They are easy books to read. The romances are fun, but they're not like sweet and sappy or anything. I just hope we get more of Dream Harbour in some of the other ones. So yeah, that is my last book of 2025 and the last book I read in December. So as I said, overall it was a good month for reading. I got quite a bit done. I enjoyed what I read. It's just none of them sort of blew my socks off or anything like that. And I've made a start on a rather hefty book for book club as the beginning of this year, so I'm working my way through that. But do click that subscribe button if you want to see what I got up to, what I've read in January. If you've enjoyed this one, do give me a thumbs up and I will see you in my next video. Bye!